I think the best way to share about what we do is to tell just a brief story that a few of you in the room maybe have heard recently. I live in Seattle, Washington, and right by Boeing Field, there's a river called the Duwamish River. And this river sustained the Duwamish people, who are the indigenous people of Washington State. That part of Washington State sustained the Duwamish people for thousands of years. They used the river for fishing, salmon, and other seafood. They used the river to go out and travel to meet other tribes along the Oregon, what's now the Oregon coast or Washington coast. And because Boeing Field and other factories were located in proximity to the river, a lot of toxins were released into the river. Now, Seattle is a very, very environmentally conscious community. And so scientists started to find out that the fish that people were consuming from the river, that we shouldn't eat that fish for the next 1,000 years. And adjacent to the river, there's also a community called South Park, which is a working class to poor Latino community. A lot of people were literally fishing in the river for food, to put food on their dinner table. And so a lot of people, a lot of community organizations, the Duwamish tribe got together and they started to really do research on the river. And then eventually the state of Washington got involved. Then eventually the federal government got involved and it was declared a Superfund site. So millions and millions of dollars were poured into fixing this problem. They would dredge parts of the river, take water out, take the fish out, put water back in. And so after millions and millions of dollars and years of labor, they went back and they studied the fish again. And what they found is, in spite of all the work that was done, in spite of all the good intentions behind the work that was done, that we still should not eat this fish for the next 1,000 years. So they missed something very critical in their cleanup process. To give one person a guess, what do you think they missed?
Soil.
They got all the companies, they put a hard stop on all the companies polluting the river. One more person guess.
I was going to say the soil underneath, or there was something.
Right. Well, somebody said the groundwater.
Yeah, the groundwater.
And so the toxins seep beneath the soil, even though they dredge the soil, the topsoil, the toxins seep beneath the soil into the groundwater. And we understand that 98% of all fresh water in the mainland US is fed by groundwater. And so this story is analogous to the approach that we use. So I live in Seattle, and Seattle is one of the most progressive cities in the world. We have, it's an incredibly blue state, if that matters to you. We have socialists on our city council. We have every initiative around race and equity you could ever imagine. Everyone from every institution has been through all sorts of training around racial equity, yet and still our outcomes by every measurable, whether that's economics, housing, poverty, healthcare, incarceration, educational outcomes, every single measurable is getting worse in the city of Seattle. And most of the folks that we engage with are well-intentioned people who do not want these disparities to continue to exist. And we, many of us who are involved with the Human Solidarity Project, were instrumental in creating the programs, policies, and training that people went through. So we had to look at what are we doing where we're not achieving the results that we want to achieve. We could continue going down the same path and just speaking to the conscious mind of people. And we decided we had to look at something deeper. And that deeper look is that groundwater. And again, groundwater being analogous for the subconscious mind. So all of us from a very young age received socialization and conditioning that now lives in our subconscious mind. And until we make a conscious effort to change that conditioning and programming, we will produce what that conditioning taught us to produce. Mm-hmm. And so understanding our conscious mind, roughly 2 to 5% of what we do on a day-to-day basis is happening from our conscious mind. 95 to 98% of everything we do is happening from our subconscious mind. So in many ways, it's akin to us being on autopilot. And so when we think about supplier diversity, we think about equity across any measurable, again, that we want to look at. Our focus, our contention is, in the Human Solidarity Project, if we do not address the groundwater, our children will be sitting in rooms like this 20 years from now, having these same conversations about diversity, equity, supplier diversity, what have you. And so The crux of our approach is focusing in on socialization, how each of us were conditioned, and how that lives in our groundwater, and how each of us individually and as organizations can work to mitigate the impact of our groundwater so we can start to produce different outcomes and different results. So that's really the heart of the human solidarity approach.